Commander Elena Vega gripped the controls of her escape pod as it hurtled through the atmosphere of an unknown moon. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat a reminder of how close she had come to death. Moments ago, her ship, the research vessel *EOS*, had been ambushed by an unseen enemy. Explosions tore through its hull, scattering debris across space. She barely made it out alive, ejecting just before the *EOS* disintegrated into fiery fragments. Now, alone and adrift, she braced herself for impact. The pod slammed into the surface with a deafening crash, sending shockwaves through the metallic frame. Dust swirled outside the cracked viewport, obscuring her view of the alien landscape. When the dust settled, Elena unbuckled herself from the seat and stepped cautiously onto the rocky ground. The air was thin but breathable, though tinged with a strange metallic scent that stung her nose. Above her, 2 suns hung low on the horizon, casting eerie shadows over jagged cliffs and twisted vegetation. Elena's communicator crackled faintly, but no voices came through, only static. She tried hailing for help, knowing full well there might not be anyone left to hear her. The attack had been swift and merciless. Her crew was gone, their lives snuffed out without warning. Anger and grief gnawed at her insides, but she pushed them aside. Survival was all that mattered now. As she scavenged what little supplies remained in the pod, a sudden movement caught her eye. Something, or someone, was watching her from the shadows of a nearby ridge. Elena froze, her hand instinctively reaching for the plasma pistol strapped to her thigh. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice steady despite the knot forming in her stomach. No response came, but the figure shifted again, revealing a sleek silhouette clad in dark, reflective armor. Its presence radiated menace, every step deliberate and silent. Elena raised her weapon, aiming it squarely at the intruder. "Show yourself." The figure stopped a few meters away, tilting its head as if studying her. Then, without warning, glowing blue eyes flared to life beneath its helmet. A voice entered her mind, not spoken aloud, but projected directly into her thoughts. "You are not my target." Elena lowered her gun slightly, startled by the intrusion. "What do you want?" The being didn't answer immediately. Instead, it turned sharply toward the sky, where several robotic drones descended rapidly, their weapons trained on Elena. Before she could react, the armored figure sprang into action. With fluid precision, it dismantled the machines one by one, leaving nothing but smoking wreckage behind. When the threat was neutralized, the figure returned its attention to Elena. Though its face remained hidden behind the visor, she sensed curiosity, and perhaps even caution, in its stance. Again, the telepathic voice spoke. "They will send more. We must move quickly." Elena hesitated, torn between distrust and desperation. Whoever, or whatever, this being was, it clearly wasn't human, but it had saved her life, and right now that counted for something. "Why should I trust you?" she demanded. The figure tilted its head again, almost as if amused. "Because we share a common enemy." With no better options, Elena nodded reluctantly. For now, survival meant sticking together, even if her new companion was as mysterious as the moon they stood on. The moon was a harsh and unforgiving place, its jagged terrain cutting into Elena's boots as she followed the mysterious alien assassin. Cal, she assumed that was his name, based on the fragmented thoughts he occasionally projected into her mind, moved with an eerie grace, his every step calculated and silent. He didn't bother to check if she was keeping up, but Elena wasn't about to let him out of her sight. She had too many questions, and no one else to rely on. For hours they trudged across the barren landscape, dodging sudden gusts of toxic wind that whipped through the valleys like angry spirits. Elena struggled to match Kel's pace, her body still recovering from the crash. Her lungs burned, and her muscles screamed in protest, but she refused to show weakness. If this alien thought she was fragile, he'd leave her behind without a second thought. Finally, Cale stopped near a cluster of twisted rocks, gesturing for her to take cover. Elena dropped to the ground beside him, her eyes scanning the horizon for signs of danger. "What are we waiting for?" she asked, her voice low. Cale didn't answer verbally. Instead, a series of images flashed in her mind. A map of sorts, showing their current location and a distant structure half buried in the sand. Asterisk safe haven, asterisk, his voice echoed in her thoughts. Asterisk, but getting there will not be easy. Asterisk. Elena frowned. You could have led with that earlier. Cale tilted his head slightly, the movement almost mechanical. Asterisk, you did not ask. Asterisk. Despite herself, Elena smirked. For all his lethal efficiency, this alien had a dry sense of humor, or at least something close to it. Still, trust was in short supply between them. Every glance at his armored form reminded her how little she knew about him. Was he truly an assassin? Why had those drones attacked her? And why, after saving her life, did he seem so indifferent to her fate? As if sensing her unease, Cale reached for a device strapped to his wrist. With a few quick taps, a holographic display flickered to life, showing schematics of various weapons and ships. One image caught Elena's attention, a sleek fighter craft bearing the insignia of the Obsidian Syndicate. Her blood ran cold. You know who they are, she whispered. It wasn't a question. Cale nodded. Asterisk. They hunt us both. Their motives differ, but their methods are the same. Destruction. Asterisk. Elena clenched her fists. The Syndicate was infamous for its ruthless tactics and shadowy operations. If they were involved in the attack on the Asterisk EOS Asterisk, then this went far beyond a random ambush. Someone wanted her dead, and Cale wasn't telling her everything. Before she could press further, a deep growl rumbled through the air. Both of them turned sharply toward the sound, spotting a pack of feral creatures emerging from the shadows. They looked like oversized wolves, their mottled fur blending with the rocky terrain. Glowing red eyes locked onto Elena and Cale, hunger radiating from their hunched forms. Without hesitation, Cale stepped forward, drawing a blade that shimmered with an otherworldly glow. Elena raised her pistol, aiming at the nearest beast. Looks like we're sticking together a little longer, she muttered. The first creature lunged, only to be met by Cale's blade slicing cleanly through its neck. Elena fired her weapon, taking down another before it could pounce. Together, they fought back to back, their movements synchronized despite their differences. By the time the last beast fell, Elena was breathing heavily, her hands trembling from adrenaline. Cale holstered his weapon and turned to face her. For the first time, his glowing eyes softened just slightly. Asterisk. You fight well, for a human. Asterisk. Elena wiped sweat from her brow and gave him a wry smile. And you talk too much, for an assassin. Though neither admitted it aloud, a fragile understanding passed between them. They were bound by necessity, yes, but also by survival. On this hostile moon, surrounded by enemies and predators, they needed each other more than either cared to admit. As they resumed their journey toward the safe haven, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that Cale's presence was both a blessing and a mystery, one she intended to unravel, one step at a time. The safe haven Cale had promised turned out to be an abandoned outpost nestled in the shadow of a towering cliff. Its metal walls were rusted and crumbling, but it offered shelter from the relentless winds that swept across the moon's surface. Elena stepped inside cautiously, her pistol drawn as she scanned the dim interior. Dust coated every surface, and strange symbols etched into the walls glowed faintly under the light of their handheld torches. This place looks ancient, Elena murmured, brushing her fingers over one of the symbols. It pulsed weakly beneath her touch, sending a shiver up her spine. What is this? Cale moved closer, his glowing eyes narrowing as he studied the markings. For the first time since they'd met, he seemed unsettled. Asterisk. "These are not ordinary ruins, asterisk," he said telepathically. Asterisk. "They belong to the Verith." Asterisk. Elena glanced at him sharply. "Your people built this." Asterisk. "No. My ancestors discovered these structures long ago. They were left behind by a civilization older than any recorded history." Asterisk. He paused, his tone growing heavier. Asterisk. "A civilization destroyed by war." Asterisk. Before Elena could ask more, the ground trembled beneath their feet. A low rumble echoed through the chamber, and part of the wall slid open, revealing a hidden passageway. Cale hesitated, then gestured for her to follow. "It's safe," he assured her, though his tense posture suggested otherwise. They descended into the depths of the ruins, the air growing colder with each step. The corridor led them to a massive chamber filled with holographic displays frozen in time. Strange figures moved within the projections, their forms humanoid yet alien. Elena approached one of the displays, watching as it flickered to life under her touch. The hologram showed a star map dotted with planets, many marked with red glyphs. Battles erupted across several worlds, depicted in chilling detail. Ships clashed in orbit, while armies fought on the ground, leaving cities in ruins. At the center of it all stood a crystalline weapon pulsing with dark energy, a device capable of wiping out entire civilizations. "What is that thing?" Elena asked, dread pooling in her stomach. Cal's voice was grim. Asterisk. "The Obsidian Syndicate seeks to recreate it. If they succeed." Asterisk. He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. Elena understood the stakes all too well. Another hologram caught her attention, a council meeting between various species, including humans and Verith. One figure stood out, a tall, regal woman wearing robes adorned with intricate patterns. Her face bore a striking resemblance to Cal's armor design. "That's your leader," Elena realized aloud. Asterisk. "She was." Asterisk. Cal corrected. Asterisk. "Her name was Salus. She opposed the creation of the weapon, even when others demanded its use. When the war ended, the knowledge of its existence was buried here, to ensure it would never be found again." Asterisk. Elena frowned. "Then how does the Syndicate know about it?" Cal's silence spoke volumes. Finally, he admitted, Asterisk. "Someone betrayed my people. Someone close to me." Asterisk. The weight of his words hung heavy in the air. Elena wanted to press further, but before she could, the chamber began to shake violently. The holograms flickered and died, plunging them into near darkness. "We've triggered something," Elena said, gripping her pistol tightly. Cale activated a small device on his wrist, casting a pale blue glow around them. Asterisk. "We must leave. Now." Asterisk. But as they turned to retrace their steps, the entrance sealed shut behind them. The walls shifted, revealing rows of mechanical drones emerging from hidden alcoves. Their glowing eyes locked onto Elena and Cale, weapons charging ominously. "Of course," Elena muttered, raising her weapon. "Because why wouldn't things get worse?" Cale unsheathed his blade, his stance calm despite the odds. Asterisk. "Stay close." Asterisk. As the drones advanced, Elena couldn't help but wonder what other secrets lay buried in these ruins, and whether uncovering them would cost them their lives. The chamber erupted into chaos as the drones opened fire, their energy blasts illuminating the darkness with searing flashes of light. Elena dove behind a crumbling pillar, narrowly avoiding a shot that scorched the ground where she'd been standing moments earlier. Her heart pounded as she returned fire, her plasma pistol crackling with each pull of the trigger. Across the room, Cale moved like a shadow, his blade slicing through drones with lethal precision. "Any bright ideas?" Elena shouted over the din, reloading her weapon with trembling hands. Cale didn't respond verbally. Instead, an image flashed in her mind, a plan forming in his thoughts and projected directly to hers. Asterisk. "Distract them. I'll disable the central core." Asterisk. Elena nodded, trusting him despite herself. She popped out from cover, firing wildly to draw the drone's attention. Several turned toward her, their weapons locking onto her position. As they advanced, she noticed Kale slipping away, using the chaos to weave through the battlefield unnoticed. Her distraction came at a cost. A blast grazed her arm, sending a searing pain shooting through her body. She gritted her teeth, refusing to cry out. Grabbing a chunk of debris, she hurled it at the nearest drone, buying herself precious seconds. The machines were relentless, but so was she. Meanwhile, Kale reached the center of the chamber, where a pulsating sphere hummed with energy. This was the source powering the drones, an ancient control system reactivated by their presence. Without hesitation, he plunged his blade into the sphere, causing sparks to fly. The drones faltered, their movements sluggish as the power supply began to fail. But the sphere wasn't going down without a fight. It emitted a high-pitched whine, sending shockwaves rippling through the chamber. One of them struck Kale, knocking him off his feet. Alina saw him stumble and immediately sprang into action. "I've got you," she yelled, sprinting toward him even as drones closed in around her. She fired blindly, her focus solely on reaching Kale before the collapsing structure trapped them both. When she reached him, she grabbed his arm and hauled him to safety behind a fallen pillar. His armor was dented, and blood trickled from a gash on his forehead. Though whether it was his or someone else's, she couldn't tell. "You okay?" she asked, her voice tight with concern. Kale nodded weakly. Asterisk. "Finish it." Asterisk. Together, they made one final push toward the sphere. Alina covered Kale as he embedded a small explosive device into its core. Salvage tech from the outpost above. "Get back," she shouted, pulling him away just as the charge detonated. The explosion lit up the chamber, destroying the sphere and shutting down the remaining drones. Silence fell abruptly, broken only by the sound of crumbling walls as the ruins began to collapse. "We need to move," Alina shouted, grabbing Cal's wrist and dragging him toward the exit. They ran through narrow corridors, dodging falling debris until they burst into the open air. Behind them, the entrance sealed itself once more, burying the secrets and dangers deep underground. Gasping for breath, Alina collapsed onto the rocky ground, clutching her injured arm. Kale knelt beside her, examining the wound with uncharacteristic care. Wordlessly, he activated a device on his gauntlet, emitting a soft blue glow that numbed the pain and sealed the injury. "Thanks," Alina said softly, meeting his glowing eyes. There was something different about him now, less guarded, more human. Kale hesitated before speaking aloud for the first time, his voice low and gravelly. "You saved me, and you saved me first," she replied with a faint smile. For a moment, neither spoke, but in that silence, an unspoken bond solidified between them. They weren't just allies anymore. They were partners, forged in battle and bound by trust. As they stared at the sealed ruins, Alina knew one thing for certain. Whatever secrets lay buried beneath the surface, they would face them together. The asteroid field was a chaotic maze of jagged rocks and swirling debris, but Alina navigated it with precision born from desperation. Behind them, syndicate ships fired relentlessly, their energy blasts lighting up the void like deadly fireworks. The stolen shuttle shuddered under the impact of near misses, its hull groaning in protest. "We can't keep this up forever," Alina muttered through gritted teeth, her eyes darting between the view screen and the controls. Kale stood beside her, his glowing eyes scanning the chaos outside. Asterisk. "We don't need to outrun them. We need to outsmart them." Asterisk. Alina glanced at him sharply. "You have a plan." Without answering, Kale activated a holographic map on his wrist device, pinpointing a narrow gap between two massive asteroids. Asterisk there. "Fly through that corridor. It will force them to break formation." Asterisk. Taking a deep breath, Alina steered the shuttle toward the gap, her hand steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. As they passed through, the pursuing ships were forced to split apart, some colliding with the asteroids while others veered off course. But their reprieve was short-lived. One Syndicate vessel managed to stay on their tail, its engines roaring as it closed the distance. A sudden blast rocked the shuttle, sending sparks flying from the console. "They're targeting our engines," Alina shouted, struggling to maintain control. Kale moved quickly, grabbing a plasma charge from his pack. "Distract them. I'll handle the rest." "What are you planning?" she demanded, panic creeping into her voice. He didn't answer, instead heading for the airlock. Realization dawned on Alina just as Kale gave her a final nod. "Trust me." With no time to argue, Alina pushed the shuttle into a sharp dive, drawing the enemy ship's fire away from Kale. Through the rear viewport, she watched him leap into space, using his enhanced agility to propel himself onto the Syndicate vessel. His movements were swift and precise, disabling its weapons before planting the plasma charge directly on its hull. Seconds later, the ship exploded in a brilliant burst of light, debris scattering across the void. Alina exhaled shakily, relief washing over her, until another transmission crackled through the comms. "Impressive tactics, Commander Vega, a cold, mechanical voice intoned. But your efforts are futile." On the view screen, a holographic figure materialized, a sleek AI interface bearing the insignia of the Obsidian Syndicate. Its name flashed below. "Solus, you're the one behind all this," Alina said, her voice hardening. "The attacks, the weapon, everything." "I am merely ensuring humanity's survival." Solus replied smoothly. "The weapon will bring order to chaos, even if sacrifices must be made." Alina clenched her fists. "Order? You call genocide order?" Before Solus could respond, Cal re-entered the shuttle via the airlock, his armor scorched but intact. He wasted no time relaying his next move. "Their main fortress lies ahead. If we strike now, we may disable the weapon before it's fully operational." Alina hesitated, knowing what he was suggesting. "You mean infiltrate their stronghold? That's suicide." "Not. If we use your powers," Kel countered. For days, they had trained Alina to harness the echo resonance. Now, it was time to put those skills to the test. Closing her eyes, Alina focused on the artifact, letting its energy flow through her. She envisioned herself cloaked in invisibility, not just physically, but mentally, shielding their presence from detection. When she opened her eyes, Kale nodded approvingly. "It's working. Let's move." They docked at the fortress undetected, slipping past automated defenses thanks to Alina's newfound abilities. Inside, the corridors were eerily silent, lined with pulsating conduits feeding energy into the heart of the structure. At its core lay the crystalline weapon, glowing ominously as it hummed with destructive potential. "This is it," Alina whispered, her grip tightening on the artifact. Kale stepped forward, his blade ready. "Destroy it. Whatever happens, don't stop until it's done." As they approached the weapon, alarms blared, and Syndicate enforcers swarmed the chamber. Alina unleashed her power, creating barriers to hold them back, while Kale fought fiercely, his every strike calculated and lethal. Finally, Alina reached the weapon's core. Placing the artifact against it, she channeled all her strength into destabilizing its energy field. Pain seared through her body, but she refused to falter. Just as the weapon began to collapse, Solus' voice echoed once more. "You cannot win, human. Your destruction ensures the galaxy's salvation." Alina gritted her teeth, determination blazing in her eyes. "Then maybe the galaxy doesn't need saving by monsters like you." The days that followed were a blur of survival and uneasy camaraderie. Alina and Kale scavenged what little they could from the ruins' outskirts, piecing together enough supplies to keep moving. The revelation about the ancient weapon, and the syndicate's obsession with it weighed heavily on both their minds. They needed answers, allies, or at least a safe place to regroup. But trust was scarce in this corner of the galaxy, and every transmission they intercepted only deepened their paranoia. Then, unexpectedly, a familiar voice broke through the static on Elena's communicator. "Commander Vega, this is Admiral Carter. If you can hear me, respond immediately." Elena froze, her hand hovering over the device. Carter had been her mentor back on Earth, a man she'd trusted with her life. Yet after everything she'd endured, doubt crept into her mind. Was this truly him, or another trick by the syndicate? She glanced at Cull, who stood silently nearby, his glowing eyes unreadable behind his visor. "Should I answer?" she whispered. Cale tilted his head slightly. Proceed cautiously. Taking a deep breath, Elena activated the communicator. "Admiral Carter, this is Commander Vega. What's your status?" Static crackled before Carter's voice returned, tinged with relief. "Thank the stars you're alive, Elena. We lost contact with the EOS after your mission went dark. Where are you now?" Elena hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Stranded on an uncharted moon. My crew didn't make it." Carter sighed heavily. "I'm sorry for your loss. Listen, I've arranged a rendezvous point at Outpost Delta 7. It's neutral territory, and will ensure your safe return to Earth-controlled space." Though tempted to believe him, Elena couldn't ignore the warning bells ringing in her mind. She glanced at Cale again, who gave no outward reaction but projected a single thought into her mind. A trap. Still, refusing Carter outright wasn't an option, not if he held vital information. After a brief pause, Elena replied, "Understood, Admiral. We'll meet you there." When the transmission ended, Cale stepped closer, his tone urgent. "You cannot go alone. He knows too much about you, and nothing about me." "He's my mentor," Elena argued, though uncertainty lingered in her voice. "If anyone can help us uncover the truth, it's him." Reluctantly, Cale agreed to accompany her, disguising himself beneath a hooded cloak to conceal his alien features. Together, they boarded a stolen syndicate shuttle and set course for Delta 7, a remote outpost orbiting a dying star. Upon arrival, the outpost seemed eerily quiet. No ships docked outside, no signs of activity within. Elena's unease grew as she and Cale entered the main chamber, where Admiral Carter awaited them, flanked by armed guards. "Welcome, Commander," Carter said warmly, though his eyes betrayed a cold calculation. "And who might your companion be?" Before Elena could respond, Cale stepped forward, pulling back his hood. His glowing eyes locked onto Carter, and his voice resonated in everyone's minds. "Your lies end here, human." Carter smirked, unbothered. "Ah, a Varith assassin. How predictable." Then, without warning, he raised a hand, signaling his guards to train their weapons on Elena and Cale. "What is this, Carter?" Elena demanded, her voice trembling with anger. "You led me here under false pretenses." Carter's expression hardened. "The data you recovered from the EOS contains critical intel about the Syndicate's plans. Hand it over, and I'll let you live." Elena's blood ran cold. "You're working with them." "Not willingly," Carter snapped. "But sacrifices must be made for the greater good. Now choose. Cooperate, or die alongside your alien friend." In that moment, Cale acted. With lightning speed, he disarmed 2 guards and created a diversion, giving Elena time to grab her pistol. Shots rang out as the pair fought back to back, their movements synchronized despite the chaos. As they reached the exit, Carter shouted after them, his voice laced with venom. "You think you can stop the Syndicate? You're already too late." Once aboard the shuttle, Elena slammed her fist against the console, fury boiling over. "He betrayed us. All of us." Cale placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. Asterisk, betrayal is a weapon they wield well, but we will not fall to it. Asterisk. Together, they plotted their next move, knowing one thing for certain. The fight ahead would test them like never before. The stolen shuttle hurtled through the void of space, its engines groaning under the strain of evasive maneuvers. Alina sat in the pilot's seat, her knuckles white as she gripped the controls. Behind her, Cale tended to a gash on his arm, a wound he'd sustained during their escape from Admiral Carter's betrayal. The silence between them was heavy, broken only by the occasional crackle of static from the ship's damaged comm system. Alina replayed Carter's words in her mind, each syllable laced with deceit. "You're already too late." What did he mean? Had the Syndicate already activated the weapon, or were they closer than ever to completing it? Her thoughts spiraled until Cal's voice cut through the chaos. Asterisk, we cannot dwell on what we cannot change, asterisk, he said telepathically, his tone firm but not unkind. Asterisk, focus on what lies ahead. Asterisk, easier said than done. Alina clenched her jaw, frustration bubbling inside her. And what exactly is ahead? We're fugitives now, hunted by the Syndicate, betrayed by my own people. What chance do we have? Cale stepped forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. For once, his glowing eyes softened. Asterisk, survival is not about chances. It's about choices. And you've chosen to fight, even when the odds seem impossible. Asterisk. His words struck a chord within her, reigniting a flicker of determination. She nodded slowly, pushing aside her doubts. Then let's make our next choice count. As if answering her resolve, the artifact she'd taken from the ruins began to hum faintly in her pocket. Startled, Alina pulled it out and examined it closely. The strange symbols etched into its surface glowed brighter, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. A sudden wave of dizziness washed over her, and images flooded her mind,